Welcome to the Fall 2025 Harvard Youth Poll, which tells the story of a generation struggling to get by in a country they fear has left them behind. Here at the Harvard Public Opinion Project, we run the nation's largest and longest-running survey on the political attitudes of young Americans aged 18 to 29. In our most recent edition, here's what we found.
Young Americans feel that the country is off course and that their futures are unstable. Only 13% say that the U.S. is headed in the right direction, while 57% think that the country is off on the wrong track. And even among young Republicans, only 1/3 believe that the country is headed in the right direction.
Affordability is a constant concern. 43% say they're struggling to make ends meet or getting by with limited financial security. 37% identify inflation as their most urgent economic priority, far outpacing other issues across party lines.
And AI is adding to their economic stress, reshaping how they think about work. Young Americans are 3 times more likely to believe that AI will take away opportunities than create opportunities.
And over 4 in 10 young Americans worry that AI will make work less meaningful, with the majority seeing AI as a threat to their job prospects, significantly more than say so about immigration and outsourcing of jobs.
Politically, while most young Americans lack faith in national leadership, they still prefer for Democrats to win the 2026 midterms.
President Trump's job approval stands at 29%, followed closely by Democrats in Congress at 27% and then Republicans at 26%.
Despite the skepticism among registered voters, 46% prefer Democratic control of Congress in the 2026 midterms, compared with 29% who prefer Republican control.
Party identity is driven more by frustration than by loyalty. When asked to use one word to describe each party,
58% of respondents
use a negative word for Democrats, with weak being the most common answer, and 56% of respondents use a negative word for Republicans, with corrupt being the most common answer. Only 16% of people used a positive word for Democrats, and just 17% used a positive word for Republicans.
And many are distrustful toward both parties, with 40% of respondents saying something negative about both. Most notably, nearly half of young Democrats said something negative about their own party, while only 1/3 of young Republicans said something negative about the GOP.
Young Americans reject ideological labels, but still rally behind movements that challenge the party establishment. Only 39% support capitalism, down 6 points from 2020. And similarly, only 21% support socialism, down 9 points from 2020.
However, within each party, movement politics remain strong, with 38% of Democrats personally identifying as Democratic Socialists and 43% of Republicans identifying as MAGA. Independents largely reject both movements.
Let's talk about trust in vaccines. While 2/3 of young Americans are confident, including 84% of young Democrats, only 54% of young Republicans are confident.
And then there's the racial gap. Although 74% of white young Americans are confident in vaccines, nearly half of Black respondents say that they aren't confident that vaccines are safe.
Meanwhile, 23% of young Americans support removing vaccine requirements for school children. Only 12% believe there's a link between vaccines and autism, but nearly 1/3 aren't sure one way or the other.
Despite this skepticism, medical experts emerge as a rare trusted source of information. 79% trust their own doctor for vaccine information, and 76% trust scientists and researchers. Trust in pharmaceutical companies, though, is much lower, at 43%, and only 27% trust HHS Secretary RFK Jr.
Interpersonal trust between young Americans is also in crisis. Only 35% believe that Americans with opposing political beliefs still want what's best for the country, with similarly low levels of agreement between Democrats, Republicans, and independents alike. Nearly half of young Americans avoid political conversations because they worry about how others will react. And 1 in 3 young Americans say they often feel judged when they share their political views.
Gen Z's crisis of low trust has become a crisis of trust in democracy itself. 2/3 of young Americans now believe that the U.S. democracy is in trouble or has already failed, comprising 80% of Democrats, 41% of Republicans, and 70% of independents. Economic stability is key here. Young Americans who are just barely getting by are the most negative about the state of our democracy.
Furthermore, though 72% of young Americans say it's important that the U.S. remains a democracy, this number has fallen 6 points since 2021. And among young Republicans, The belief in the importance of American democracy has dropped 13 points.
Meanwhile, views of institutions that support democratic life reflect the same unease. Half of young Americans view the mainstream media as a threat to America, with Republicans holding the most negative views.
Generation Z's low trust in political institutions and each other is driving an even darker trend. While a strong majority of young Americans still reject political violence, some would find it acceptable under certain circumstances.
We asked whether political violence would be acceptable in 5 different situations. 28% say it would be acceptable when the government violates individual rights. 12% say when election outcomes are fraudulent. 11% say when someone promotes extremist beliefs. 11% say when someone else encourages violence. And 10% say when peaceful protests fail to accomplish their goals.
39% of young Americans say that political violence is acceptable under at least one circumstance listed. Statistical testing reveals that structural conditions, rather than partisanship, are most responsible for higher rates of acceptance.
Acceptance of political violence is higher amongst young people that are facing greater financial strain or social alienation, as well as young people who have less faith in institutions and the good intentions of others.
The fall 2025 Harvard Youth Poll reveals that young Americans are in an extremely precarious position, with political, economic, and interpersonal stressors closing in from all sides. Gen Z is looking for a new way forward, but so far, we haven't found it. For more, go to iop.harvard.edu or follow us on social media @HarvardIOP.